And I think that's something that architects are really good at, right, is just asking what if. And then sometimes being able to actually accomplish the what if, the dreams that people have, and make things fit them, fit their personality, fit the way they live, much differently than the tract houses that most of us live in or most people live in, because those are built for everybody, right? And so they're kind of built based around the rules of the lowest common denominator. Everybody needs to check these boxes. We need this many bedrooms. We need this many bathrooms. We need, do we need the office or the third car garage? So on and so forth. I think as soon as people kind of get out of the mindset of the checking the boxes and they start to create spaces that have meaning to their life, then they really start to understand what architecture can do for them. Welcome to the Archispeak podcast. I'm Evan Troxel. Each episode, Neil Pan, Cormac Phelan, and I have a casual conversation about all things architecture, and we invite you to listen in as we talk about everything in the profession, both the good and the bad. Maybe you're considering a career in architecture, you're still in school, or you've been around the blocks of Corbusier's City of Tomorrow more times than you'd like to admit. Join us in the studio as we stand around the water cooler and talk about why we love our chosen profession. It's time for some Archispeak.
Only outlined my body in Tiffany blue. When I died, I drove right in and swam with the dolphins and Lisa Frank. And you.
Welcome to episode 79 of the Archispeak podcast. I'm Neil Pan.
I'm Evan Troxel.
And I'm Cormac Phelan.
And this episode of Archispeak is sponsored by ArcCat. Visit them at arcat.com. And we're also sponsored by the Architecture Business Plan Competition. And we'll talk a little bit more about each of those later on in the show. But first up, we have some viewer feedback, actually.
All right. So we got an email from Katie Kangas, and she has been listening to the show and taking AREs. And as of about the middle of last year, she finished up taking all those tests. And now she's just finishing up some CA work, it sounds like, to finish IDP so that she can actually call herself an architect. But she asked a really good question. And this is something that I think all of us have a little bit different experience with. So the real point of her message, as she says, is that she wants to know what our thoughts are on doing their own house projects, either designing, building, or remodeling. I think we all have, like I said, kind of a different take on this one. And Neil, you've gone the full depth. You want to start out?
I have done something I never thought I would do, something I never anticipated or even really wanted to do. I really didn't want to do
something you'll never do again.
Yes, I will never do this again. Actually, it makes me question what I do for other people because I do a lot of remodeling and new additions and things like that. And so I've been through that hell, and I often wonder, I sympathize with my clients because they're going through the same thing. But
that's the new tagline for architecture, putting people through hell.
Yeah, well, I mean, remodeling, especially in the scope that I did, where we went down to the foundation and started over and built a 2-story house instead of a single story, it's quite an undertaking. And it's one that, even though I had been doing residential work and just architecture in general for many years at that point, there were just so many things that go into dealing with your own house and all the things you really kind of don't think about. I mean, right down to the doorknobs and, which doors get locks, which doors don't. I mean, just so many things to deal with that it is very overwhelming. And it's quite an undertaking.
Well, what started you on this path? I mean, why did you decide to
take us back,
design and build your own home instead of buying a move-in ready? Right.
In our case, it really kind of came down to location. I like the neighborhood I'm in, my neighbors, and I didn't really want to move to a different area of town and buy a bigger house. So the lot was large enough that we decided to do the larger addition. the reasoning is that when I bought the house originally, it was a small house, about 900 square feet with 2 bedrooms and 1 bathroom. And after I got married and then we had 2 children, that was getting a little tight. So
just a little, right?
Yeah, just a little. Yeah.
Whatever.
So the idea was we actually had 2 potential plans. One was a smaller remodel that didn't really have much addition other than to eat up the garage space and turn it into a master bedroom and then do a detached garage, which, looking back on it, as the economy completely fell apart while I was under construction and I lost my job, so that was real fun. Looking back, I kind of wish we had done that because the cost would have been far less than the cost that I'm having to deal with now and pay for. So, looking back, I wish I had done things maybe a little bit differently. But at the time, we were able to afford what we did, and we've managed to keep it. So I guess that's we've done well. But So that's why we did what we did, and we added enough space for the kids to have their own rooms, and for to have another bathroom and actually an office that has been my office for 7 years that I've had my own practice. So that's all worked out pretty well. So that's why we did what we did. But as I pointed out to Katie when I responded to her, that there's a lot of satisfaction in all the things that went right, but there are tons of mistakes and little imperfections or downright screw-ups in construction that bug me every day. As the years have gone on, I kind of forgotten about most of them or some of them, but there's definitely times I go, for the most part, I don't like... It's not the design. I think for the most part, I try to anticipate everything. But for instance, I used to put, or I would put, since we're just past the holidays, I would hang lights from my eaves. And so I had an electrical outlet installed underneath the eave, and so that I could plug the lights in, and that's all hooked up to a switch that's inside at the entry. So, I thought, this is great. Okay, I get this all planned out, right? And so, like the first Christmas we're in the house, my wife decides to go out and buy some lawn lights. Some things that kind of not the full on deers and Santas and those kind of things, but these were just nice, elegant looking trees that lit up at night. And we were like, oh crap!
You didn't have a regular
outlet. I never did
outlet.
that before, so I didn't anticipate it. So I was like, God darn it! And so, like every holiday now, it's like, damn it, yeah. So, there's a way around it. There's a
get off my lawn joke in here somewhere.
Yeah, probably.
Well, that was what he bought. That was the lights.
Yeah,
spelled out, get off my lawn.
That would have been good.
It's a big
but it wasn't lit because he didn't have an outlet.
Well, it didn't have a convenient outlet. Let's put it that way. Yeah. If I knew we were going to do this, I would have had some outlets out front.
So you're saying you still have to deal with all the things that we all have to deal with?
Yes. Yeah. Well,
even though you designed it all, yeah.
I tried. I tried really hard to anticipate everything in the house, and because one of the advantages that I had was. I think we had all of pretty much all of our furniture we already owned and had. So as I designed it, I basically designed it around all of like our beds and the, bookcases and different things. Whatever we had furniture wise, I made the house fit and work with all of it. And so that was, these are all things that you can do that are great. As the fact that like my whole house is wired with, Cat 6A wiring, and every computer, anything that is not a mobile device is actually plugged in. It's all, I'm a kind of a geek nerd like that. So like every device, Wi-Fi, none of it's on Wi-Fi, just the mobile devices. So those are, all the things I tried to do. And so those are great, because as you go around the house, everything that you tried to anticipate worked, and it's there and it's done. But again, all the fears that you might have about any mistakes you might make, it's really just those things do kind of get at you for a while, or maybe things you couldn't afford to do quite right the way you wanted, so those things can really kind of drive you crazy. The other thing Katie also brought up was she talked about resale of a house, and in my case, I didn't really care.
Didn't matter, right?
No, I'm going to die in this house, so so long as I can still make it up the stairs, and if I can't, there's a bedroom downstairs. So maybe that's where I'll move when I get old. But I mean,
you mean now?
What's that? Shut up. So I just think that in my case, now I didn't do any sort of ultra high end, ultra modern type of house that wouldn't fit in with the neighborhood. My house is kind of a Mediterranean style, and it fits in well with the neighborhood, and it doesn't really stand out. So I don't think that necessarily hurts my resale. But one of the interesting things was my real estate agent that originally helped me buy the house and helped me do some of the financing for the remodel. When I showed him the plan, he kind of questioned the way I had orientated the entry, and he's like, "Well, you shouldn't do this, and it's better if you have the entry open into this, a bigger space, and blah blah blah." So I said, "Yeah, no, I'm not going to do it that way." And the nice thing is after the house was built and we invited him over, and he walked in and he saw how it all laid out in real instead of just looking at a sheet of paper. He liked it, and he said, "Yeah, no, this worked." So I mean, really, what that tells me is that for anybody, any of our listeners, go with what you feel is right. As far as the design goes, and if it's not something that is going to sell later on. I mean, if it's the house that you want, and you're going to be there for a while, then, who cares?
And if you feel like you have enough exterior outlets, you don't. Add another one.
Just make sure they're hooked to a switch on the inside of the house for those lights in the front and the back, wherever they may be.
Yeah, I think the comment about the not wanting, her uncle who managed the bank said he never wanted to lend money to architects who are building their own house because it has poor resale value is just, it's one of those comments that is just that person's point of view, right? Because if you look at, there are lots of houses designed by architects that have way more value than they did when they were built. I think the first house that I really saw when I was in school that I thought the architect designed it for himself. It was only ever going to be his house, and it turned me on to what residential architecture could be. Was Ray Cappy's house. He came and lectured, and he was one of the founders of our school, and then he went on to found SciArc as well. And I'll paste a link for you guys to check it out, and then maybe Neil, you could include some of these pictures into the show notes,
Sure.
Or one of them. But it's just like a treehouse. That it's not like a treehouse, but it's beautiful. And I just thought, this is where an architect can make a difference for themselves. And for me, who I've never built a house, but I've remodeled extensively, it's really satisfying for someone to come into a house with no expectations, and you just see them, you see their jaw drop, because it's like, whoa, this is amazing. Or you've done something really cool here, or you've done something really valuable here. And I felt like that was kind of the first sense that I had, because when I went into architecture school, I didn't know what architecture was really about. And we had to unlearn a lot of things that we had learned throughout our whole adolescence and upbringing and everything. And for me to just kind of have my eyes open to that was just one of those first times where it just really impacted me. And what I was able to do with my house that I owned, and remodeling, gutting the whole interior and putting in floating soffit ceilings and uplighting, and I did a pool in the backyard, and I tore walls out, and I opened it all up into a big space, and to see people kind of have an expectation before they walk in the door, and then to see that completely change once they walk through the door is incredibly satisfying for me because I feel like at that moment they get it. And they didn't think it was possible. And I think that's something that architects are really good at, right? Is just asking what if. And then sometimes being able to actually accomplish the what if, the dreams that people have, and make things fit them, fit their personality, fit the way they live, much differently than the tract houses that most of us live in or most people live in, because those are built for everybody, right? And so they're kind of built based around the rules of the lowest common denominator. Everybody needs to check these boxes. We need this many bedrooms. We need this many bathrooms. We need, do we need the office or the third car garage, so on and so forth. I think as soon as people kind of get out of the mindset of the checking the boxes and they start to create spaces that have meaning to their life, then they really start to understand what architecture can do for them. And so if you look through the pictures of that, and every time I look at it, I mean, it's an old house. It was done in the 70s, I think, and it still just seems just wonderful to me. And there's lots of examples of those kinds of architecture. But the other thing I'll say about remodeling houses is you do a lot of the work yourself, and I don't know if you guys did any on your house, Neil, but you really learn what you don't like to do. I will never roof a house again. I will never, there's several things like that. I hate doing drywall. I hate painting. I laid a lot of tile. I did plumbing. I did electrical. I did everything that I could possibly do. I did a lot of custom fabrication, metal and wood. And I always look back on it and I think, well, I would do that part again, but man, I will never do that again, that particular trade or task or something like that. And I will totally pay for someone to do that.
I screamed and yelled at all the different people that you just mentioned that do those different things.
You?
Yeah, no. I will say I didn't do a lot of the building on this house, but anything I could do, I cleared the yards. I, did a lot of picking up and clearing and cleaning up, and just everything I could do. And then at some point after my general quit and left, actually kind of left me high and dry and stole some money from me, good times. So
nice.
I took over the whole project and had to finish it, managing it myself. So I don't like doing that.
That's that actually is interesting, because then that leads to, she was asking about designing, would you ever want to design your own home? And everybody, has some form or fashion they start thinking about when they move into a house, and they think about, what can I do with this, or what can I do there, or like what you did is, level it and start over and go up with it. But Evan, you brought up an interesting thing that architects like to do, and that's basically act as their own general contractor,
right?
And in some cases act as their own builder and do all of the work themselves, contract the work themselves and things like that. So, that takes it to a completely different level of insanity in a way.
Yeah.
Or not insanity, but not in a way, full insanity, because, we know what it's like to design houses for people, or, just design for yourself. And, in a way that it's a little bit different and a little bit more challenging, because you're trying to more or less do your best work, even if it is, Neil fitting within the character of the neighborhood. I mean, I bet there's something about your house that's different, that's special, that kind of makes it stand out amongst its peers, because, it was your house,
Sure.
You were the architect, and you put that extra little love into it.
Well, I think there's two things when it comes to, do you want to design your own house? I think there's I don't know if it's just apprehension or just fear of, I could do anything, right? I mean, if you're just designing a house, right, you could do anything you want. And there's definitely that paralyzing, like, what would I do, right?
I love that saying, you can do anything you want, you just can't do everything you want.
Well, yeah, exactly. But I think there's also, I mean, when it came down to doing my house, even though I did start over, I had an existing foundation. I had, a perimeter foundation that really kind of restricted on what I could do, and what I could do with the feet and literally down to the inches in every room that I had to account for, and so those constraints actually I think were very helpful because. That's what architects do is we solve problems. And my problem was how do I make the house for all of us work with all of the design criteria, the program that we had within the space that was given, and what compromises I had to do or not do, to make it all work. In addition to how can I afford all of this?
Yeah. Yeah, when I was doing it, I had pretty recently bought the house, and I was doing design build at the time. So I think that, one of the other major factors, if you're going to do it yourself, like you're talking about, Cormac, is just the time commitment that it takes. Because doing it during the day and then coming home and doing it in the evening or on the weekends is a killer, I thought. For me, it was. I just couldn't do it all the time. And to add complexity to that, I ended up breaking my hand doing some fabrication one day. And that was right in the middle of me tearing walls out of my house in the kitchen. And I had tore out, appliances and stuff. And then I broke my hand. And I basically ended up making the project take like 6 months longer, for a total of like living without a kitchen for a year and a half. And so like Neil, we were talking before the show and you're talking about some clients who you drove by and a year later, they still just have studs on this part of their house because they're doing it themselves.
Right.
And you get to the point where, man, like if you're not cranking through this and trying to get it done as quickly as possible, which is what really good contractors do, right? They want to get in and out. Right? Because that maximizes profits. If you're doing it yourself, you get sick of it. Like you get totally sick of it, and it gets really hard. And then you feel like you're so invested that and maybe even prideful. Like I can't hire somebody to finish this now. Like I have to finish it. And man, it's just a killer. It ends up like then getting partway done, like done enough, so that you don't actually have to finish it, and then it just sits there unfinished for so long. So all of these things are kinds of things I think to think about before you jump into such a project of huge scope on top of your day job, right? So that's what I think is really makes it more complex and something like definitely worth kind of planning out. And I was gonna ask you, Neil, like since your wife's an architect too, did that? I mean, she kind of knew what you guys were getting into. I think most people, it could be either spouse could be the architect and the other one's not. And they're just kind of going along for the ride because they know that their spouse has always wanted to do this. I mean, just speaking generally, most architects, like we've said, want to do this in some way or another. And I think if you find a significant other that maybe has never thought that, they might play along and go along for the ride, but then they could be in for like a really terrible ride.
Yeah. In my case, you're right. My wife's an architect, so that did help. It helped a lot. I mean, obviously, she understands contractors and dealing with construction and all of this, all of the related aspects. But where it really helped was no one person can do everything, right? And so. I would come by early in the morning before I went to the office and check everything, how's everything going? I mean, I came by here early in framing and I drove by one morning and all of my windows looked like this, the sills looked too low. And I was like, boy, that just doesn't look right. And as it turned out, the framer didn't understand how how it was. All of my windows are recessed. In the exterior walls are 2x6, and the windows are in 2x4, so that they're all recessed 2 inches. And the headers above, the way it was framed, the framer didn't understand the structural detailing and screwed it up. Framed like 2 exterior walls completely wrong. And I noticed it one morning, and they had to tear it all down and redo it. Yeah. I came out another time when they had the balloon framed wall for around my staircase framed up, and I was like, guys, there's a window up there, and his head just dropped. Like, really? I'm like, SOB. I mean, don't you look at the damn
The answer
drawings?
is no.
Yes, I know. I know that's the answer. And I go through this on almost every project I do, and I go out into the field on a construction project. But when it's your own home, and you're right, the time involved was tremendous. I mean, I worked full time while this was going on, so I would come by early in the morning. I'd come by after hours at night. And then what my wife really helped out on was doing a lot of the tile and color selections and things that she knew really well because of her experience working on school projects and different public projects where that's what she did. I mean, she did a lot of selection of materials and things like that on those types of projects, in addition to, the rest of the building and such. But that was a big part of her job. So she was able to do a lot of that on this project. And then, we kind of worked back and forth. So she could do some of that, and I was doing other stuff. And it really was a team effort and a lot of effort. So, ultimately, I don't know if each person has to, make the call on their own. But it is a major effort if you're going to go through with it.
So what's your experience, Cormac?
Mine's more on the renovation side of things. Self-teaching myself how to lay tile and, redo plumbing and, redo electrical and gyp and everything else. Mine was more that way. I had a buddy, and I just kind of shared with you guys a couple of links, but I had a buddy of mine down in Florida, an architect who was also a contractor, but he designed and built and fabricated and did every single piece. He designed and built, this one house in Ruskin, Florida, and every little bit and piece of it. And we'll have a link to it in the show notes because I want people to go and take a look at this. This is what I was talking about, and taking it to the insanity to the nth degree, because we're all talking about how we've designed houses before, how we've done renovations of our own, how you've done some fabricating, Evan. This guy made everything in this house. When if there was these big soaring glue lambs that kind of form this arc that
that's a crazy arc.
He built those. The wide flange inside there, he built that out of steel plates, and built them because what he wanted to do is he wanted to fabricate within the midspan of the wide flange, wanted to fabricate in some small little portals for his HVAC, and fabricated all that because he couldn't find it. He knew exactly what he wanted to see, but he didn't, there was nothing that you could buy off the shelf, so he fabricated it. He made all of it was amazing. It took him years.
I am not surprised.
And it was absolutely amazing, the house. And he's on to the next project. That's what he does. He says if he only does 5 projects in his lifetime,
right,
it's going to be 5 projects that he's had a hand in every single nail that goes into that. And knowing him, he probably fabricated the nails himself.
Yeah, there's a picture of him laying up the glue lambs here.
It's
on a trailer, yeah.
And it's amazing that, that he had built all of these glue lambs on his own. And, it was just amazing. We went there we would go and visit him on site. And his name is Mike Calvino, and he's an amazing guy. I mean, when I first met him, at an art show, and Tampa Bay AIA was great at doing this one thing called Art by Architects. And, so we would display, any artwork or whatever that we had at the Tampa Bay AIA office. And he would bring his furniture that he would make. And it was just this fantastic, beautifully detailed to the nth degree of things. So, I met him and we started talking. And so, as we became friends, we'd go and visit him on site, and, he looked like the mad creator. He was, it's almost like what you would expect, say, Nikola Tesla, working in his workshop, and just, had like the crazy eye, because he was out there and he was just going to town on this. And it was amazing what he would create. And I can't, I love creating, I love drawing, and I love doing all of these things, but there's a level of insanity that I don't think that I would approach or, get anywhere near. And he not only approached it, he went way, way over. But it was amazing. The things that the things that he pulls together are just absolutely insane, because, you're just like, wait, I didn't think stairs could do that.
Yeah.
Well, they did that.
Yeah, it's creative.
Because he took a year to figure out how to do it and then build it himself.
Well, he figured out how to do it, and then a bunch of people told him he couldn't do it, right? And then he said, well, screw you, I'm going to do it myself. And then he did it.
And then he had one of those bankers who told him that, no, we are not going to, finance you, because, it's going to take forever. And sure, it took forever. Probably more so not because of the lack of him, doing all of the labor and everything else. It was more because every time he turned around, he was kind of getting a roadblock from, financing and things like that. But it was we'll have a link to that Ruskin house, because it's something special. It really is. Whether it's your cup of tea design wise or not, I think just the beauty of what he was able to accomplish, it's kind of like one of those crazy little hermits in the middle of, rural Florida, where all he's doing is like sitting there building, and then one day you see him emerge out of the woods, and you're like, well, what have you been doing for 5 years? And you go back there and you're just like, oh my God, that's amazing.
Well, just to kind of wrap up, I think remodeling or doing little projects around the house, I think it's all good, because it gives you a bunch of experience into all the things that we've brought up. But whether it's having to think about all the different details, or having to source things, or having to, there's so many aspects to what we do that we don't actually do, that it really does get you a little bit outside your comfort zone, and it puts you into perhaps a different mindset to the way you might think about things. And I feel like that experience is invaluable when it actually comes back to what we do, and knowing how things go together. Try welding, learn how to weld, learn how to use an angle grinder, learn how to use a table saw, all these different things that you don't have to own all the tools. You can rent the tools, you can borrow the tools, you can do whatever. But if you can build a deck or a shed, or, start small and work your way up, I think all that stuff is crazy invaluable, and not enough architects are actually making things with their hands. And I say on my website, it's like my little tagline, I work in an office, but I'd rather be outdoors. And if I really had to choose, I'd be working in my workshop, because I love making stuff and building stuff. So I think that, it's how I grew up, working on my dad's house, building decks and doing all kinds of stuff. And I feel like it's something everybody needs to dabble in, at least. You need to do that because it just helps you understand your craft even better.
Right. I totally agree. Can't say it any better.
It's cool stuff. I really like seeing the Ruskin house because it's like looking at Bruce Gough's things or Bart Prince's stuff, where it's like okay, there's you think a certain way, right? And then you see like how differently people can think about space and architecture and form, and I love seeing that stuff. I mean, it's not my aesthetic, but I can totally appreciate it. And for them to have built it themselves with their own hands, even better. Like, I could talk to that guy for weeks about that stuff. That'd be fun.
As long as you were swinging a hammer.
Yeah. He'll put you to work.
Exactly.
If you want to talk to me, you're going to work.
That seems like a reasonable thing to do.
Yeah.
Especially on that place. It's amazing. Amazing thing. That's awesome you were able to actually meet him and become friends with him. So it's an amazing thing. Definitely check out the links we'll have in the show notes for that one. So first up, we want to talk real briefly here about ARCAT. And are you tired of randomly searching the internet for building products? Would you like to have one place where you can find reliable building product information directly from the manufacturer? Then visit ARCAT at arcat.com. There, you can search the ARCAT libraries for architectural building products to find specifications, CAD details, BIM objects, and more free of charge, with no registration required to download the content. ARCAT has created a website devoted to you, the building professional, to find building product information fast and hassle-free. Check out ARCAT today at arcat.com. That's ARCAT.com. And thanks to ARCAT for sponsoring this episode of Archispeak.
Maybe if my friend Mike would have had ARCAT, he wouldn't have had to build everything by hand.
That's maybe true. Maybe true. So, Evan, you sent us a link to some doctored photos. Why don't you explain this one to us?
So there was an article that I got emailed to me from somebody in my office, and it was on the Chicago Tribune website, and the title is "Doctored Photo Raises Questions About Ethics in Architecture Contests." And basically, the idea here was, I guess it's one of the winning entries, was this project called El Centro, which is a building along the Kennedy Expressway in northeastern Illinois University. And there's the photography that goes along with the entry. You look at the photo and it's like, okay, yeah, that's a nice elevation. And we don't get to see all the pictures. We don't get to see all the entry. It's just basically kind of cutting to the chase of the issue here, which is basically, the competitions for this type of thing are all, and I don't know if you guys have entered any of these. We kind of do all the time, I guess, every year at least. Yeah. Where you do a digital submission for these AIA awards, whether they're local or whatever, regional. And so this building, it's striking, it's colorful, and it's definitely modern, and so it ended up winning. And the architect is from Chicago. It's Juan Moreno. And basically, what happened was, and it's funny, they even include some little snippets of things that the jurors said when they were judging, and so then it comes out after the competition that, well, that photo is doctored. That's photoshopped, right? That's the word that everybody uses. And because there's another photo right below it, and granted, these pictures are from the freeway side. They're not from the campus side. And so one of the things that, Cormac, you brought up was that maybe you can't even see what we're about to talk about here from the campus side, but you can definitely see it from the freeway side, which is where the photo is from.
Right.
And there's these giant tractor trailer size air handling units on the roof of this building, but in the submitted imagery, they're gone. And so I think it's interesting because, the idea here is it ethical to doctor photos like this, especially for an award, for something that's going to be that could boost your career, that's going to be a very public thing potentially, that is going to gain you recognition in your field, if you're not actually just selling the truth of the project, whether the thing that you're taking out was your fault or not, or maybe it just doesn't paint your building or your project in the best light. Is it okay to Photoshop these images. And so I thought it'd be fun to talk about this a little bit, because I think in today's day and age, it's pretty funny, because you'll see every once in a while online, I'm sure all the time actually, like real photographers having the debate, was this image altered in any way? And so are you doing it all in camera, or are you doing it a little bit in camera with a lot of post-processing? Are you doing just a little bit of post-processing? Are you just bumping the colors and the contrast? Or are you actually starting to go in with the clone tool and removing things or altering things so that it looks better than it does in reality?
For my portfolio, we'll start off with something that I did for my portfolio, images of a project that I just recently completed. And I doctored out the tractor trailer sized area units on top of the building. And
your name is Juan Moreno?
Yes. But it was just the image that I was trying to shoot and all that other stuff. I mean, it wasn't to the extreme of what that particular image was, and again, we'll have those in the show notes so you can kind of see what we're talking about. But it wasn't to that extreme. I mean, it was the shot that I had. You had like maybe visually what you could see from the ground is like a 4 foot by 2 foot like corner that kind of stuck out and broke the plane of some other corners and other kind of roof overhangs that I was really trying to capture. And so it was just something that was in the way, and I wanted the image that I was trying to get was to accentuate the roof lines. And because I couldn't get into I couldn't get into the right spot to take the photo that I wanted, the photo that I got, I wanted to clean up. So we can start with my own personal experience of whether or not that was right or wrong. And on that same shot, they just put the grass in, and not all of it had taken, so there was some brown spots. So I took the clone tool and greened the grass.
Yeah. No, I've added an entire landscape, because this is something that sucks about photographing a recently completed project, right?
Yeah,
it doesn't look good. The landscape.
Or did you Photoshop out the wire like supports that are holding a tree upright before the roots take? And did you Photoshop those out or things like that?
Yeah, signage and telephone wires and telephone poles and street lights, and
or that one person who walks into your shot when you're trying to get a person-free shot.
This happens all the time, right? And so I think one thing that's interesting is that it's like, okay, so let's get to the bottom of this particular image. And the photographer is the one who edited the units out. Right. But then they asked him, well, did you decide to do that? And he says, well, talk to Moreno. And then Moreno says, the truth is, I never tell an artist what to do. It's their work. And so they're both pointing the finger at each other.
Nice.
So neither one of them is taking responsibility for, I decided to do this. And I don't know if it even matters who did it at that point, because the architect is hiring the photographer to represent them with this imagery. It's ultimately going to be the architect's responsibility, I think. But it's funny that they're both like, well, I did it, but I didn't realize it was gonna, or whatever. I just think it's pretty ridiculous that no one's manning up to actually being the responsible person here.
Well, I'm curious. I mean, so you kind of pose it as an ethical question, and
that's how the whole article is posed, yeah.
Right. And I kind of, admitted that I've done the same thing, and you just admitted that you've kind of done the same thing. And,
well, when that strobe light for the fire alarm is right in the middle of the wall in the lobby.
Yes.
Because we didn't coordinate the drawings right. What do you
or
do?
even if you did, and unfortunately, because code, it just says that,
It's gotta be
because
there.
the distance between your strobes are X feet, and and unfortunately, it just happens to be right in one of the areas of accent, that you want some feature wall or whatever, and unfortunately, it's there.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? In post-production, it won't be.
Well, and I think we have the tools that give the ability to do these things rather easily. I mean, sometimes it's not easy and sometimes it is, but really, like, we have the ability to do stuff like this on our phones in our pockets.
Oh, yeah.
And so when it's so accessible, it's not even like something that many people think about. They're like, yeah, I mean, you apply filters when you post your pictures to Instagram, or it's becoming like that ubiquitous, right?
It's almost funny that you say, that we apply filters, because, now there's this weird little badge of honor where people hashtag,
No filter.
no filters.
No filters.
It's just like, really, dude? I mean, maybe
I've
you
done
should
that
have
before.
Oh, I've seen yours where you post no filters, and I wasn't actually, meaning you per se.
No, I know.
I think you do that a lot when you're posting pictures of a really nice sunset or something like that.
Right.
And it's just like, oh, look at these beautiful colors, And yes, this is what those colors look like. There are no filters,
Right.
And I don't think that's, your intent is that, people are going to call you out on, ooh, you used a filter to make it look that good. It's like, no, it really did look that good. But then there's, so does the ethical question come into play when you're either A, representing it for an award, or B, representing it as, a way to earn money, or to, earn a prize or something like that? Is that the difference between that and, or is there a difference?
That's the question, I think, is, what is it worse because this was for an award? I mean, every single image in every magazine or everything is edited. Everything. It's in movies. It's everything. Everything is altered. We do not live in a world where things are not altered. The only time they're not altered is when you're there in person. And I guess that's another point in this article, is that these awards, people don't have the money or the time to go and see these places in person, which is like a huge letdown to me. It's a shame, because architecture is meant to be experienced. Like, how is it any different thumbing through an award submittal than it is thumbing through ArcDaily?
Right.
I mean, it's no different, and it's not satisfying, and it's not experiential. I mean, it's just looking at pictures. And if they're all doctored, I mean, if we're just assuming that they're all doctored, I don't see why it makes any bit of difference. So if you're not going to go there and experience it yourself, then it's funny, because at the end of it's like, okay, so what do we do? Do we take the award away? And everyone's like, oh, I'm not going to take it away from him, right? I'm not going to do that. It's because everybody's doctored these images somewhat, I think.
I was going to say, I mean, do you think that there isn't one person who entered in their submission that didn't have some form of post-production, even if it's a bump of the color, or, a change in the contrast or something like that? I mean, they are going to, do something to kind of just give it that little extra something that, makes it stand out from just a regular snapshot. They want it to be a photograph, not a snapshot.
Yeah, there is a difference. All right, let's take a moment to talk about the Architecture Business Plan Competition, who is the next sponsor on our show. Free registration for the 2016 Architecture Business Plan Competition is open through January 29th. Begin your planning process now and enter for a chance to win the grand prize of $10,000. And that is no joke. 5 finalists will be flown to Philadelphia to present their full plans to 4 industry-leading jurors. Travel and lodging are provided. Again, that is pretty cool. This is a one-of-a-kind competition. It's open to all licensed architects in the United States and Canada who are planning to start a new firm within 1 year, or if you currently own a firm that's less than 10 years old. Visit archbusinessplan.com, that's ARCH, businessplan.com to learn more. And thanks to the Architecture Business Plan Competition for helping make this show possible.
There's something in that article that I want to I'm going to read this short couple of little paragraphs here, because I think it goes to, I think it helps maybe not answer the ethics question, but I think it changes the perception of what we're asking a little bit. And from the article, it says one of the most famous examples is Chicago photographer Bill Hedrich's 1937 shot of Frank Lloyd Wright's Falling Water House in western Pennsylvania. Employs a close-in angle and other techniques to accentuate how the house is cantilevered balconies historically soar over the tumbling stream. And then this gentleman, John Miller, who's the president of Chicago's Hedrich Blessing Photographers, says he decided to use a slightly wide-angle lens for that shot. He moved in under the building that used this lens to make that perspective very strong. It's an honest representation, but it's dramatic. And he finishes by
your
saying,
eyes will never see it that way.
He
Okay,
says,
yeah. So
the last part is the most important. You're interpreting the architecture, not just recording it. And I think that's really important here, is the photographer is interpreting the architecture. Is that ethically wrong to do that?
I don't think so. Now here, let me give you a little personal experience about that particular image of falling water and my experience of falling water. Is I've always had that idealized image of falling water in my head.
Yeah, right.
I know that image well.
Yep.
And when I went there, I was sort of disappointed. Because
you never see that, right?
It didn't soar like that.
You got to bring your own wide-angle lens. Yeah.
There is nowhere on site that you can, let's just say, legally go
Right.
that can ever get you to that perspective to look at the building like that. And I was honestly, I was expecting some huge dramatic cantilevers and things like that. And it's a beautiful building and it's fantastic.
So you're saying it raised your expectation beyond reality.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I was expecting something more, and it didn't quite get it.
It's the same thing with these images we're looking at right here. I mean, and one of the jurors, they asked and said, should the award be taken away? And he basically declined to say whether it should be, but he said, well, it would have altered the lens through which we viewed the project. And I think, personally, if I were to go visit this building and I only had seen this photograph first, and then I went there and I saw the railroad of trains up on the roof,
Right.
I would have been like, what the hell? Like, did they add those after?
Exactly. Now there is I did bring this up kind of pre-show, and it's just a complete side question. And it's, if you're going to go through that kind of articulation of the, the exterior facade, and it's a really interesting, design. I mean, I really kind of like it. And why didn't he design some kind of screening that might have actually even been kind of a continuation of these vertical finning and stuff like that? That would have really kind of.
Yeah, and we don't know the whole story.
Exactly.
Yeah, that got
value
VE'd.
engineering.
Mechanical screen just blocks the airflow. We don't need that. Yeah, get that out of here.
I can tell you how many times I've had mechanical screens value engineered out of a project, and it just hurts every time, because then you get that Moreno building. And he's probably like, I had a screen there. They value engineered it out. You guys need to shut up.
Yeah, we don't know the whole story, I'm sure. And this just goes, always design your parapets as high as your mechanical units.
You can't when it's like an 18-foot high cooling tower on top.
Right.
I mean, that's a lot of parapet.
Yeah.
Trust me, I'm going through that right this second with
me too.
Maybe not this second, but on my current project, we've got a 18-foot high cooling tower on top of the building that we have, thankfully, because of perspectives and sight lines and stuff, a 14-foot mechanical screen is going to block out all views.
Yeah, I've got 13 feet on mine, and I've got somebody saying, we will not have mechanical screens. And I'm like, I don't want to see the shantytown on the roof of this building.
Exactly. I mean, they're thankfully, the one project that I, admitted to doctoring up a little in my photos, thankfully, the city of Annapolis demanded, even though it was a public school building, being built in historic downtown Annapolis, and they've got their own rules and regulations. And even though they do allow modern buildings, they've got to conform to a certain visual aesthetic, not in style, but like they don't want to see mechanical equipment. It was interesting, so basically they fought to keep all of the mechanical screening, even when the actual client wanted to value engineer it out. And so that was one time that I got to win, and it was based off of the rules and regulations of the city. But what was interesting is that what extreme they go through for making sure mechanical equipment is not seen. There was a building that they had a mechanical pit, and they designed it so
sounds like something that eats people.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Well, it sort of did. Because there was several lawsuits on this after a while, so it was eating people in the figurative sense. But so they designed all of the mechanical equipment to basically be flush with the top of this pit, not project out. Mm-hmm. Well, through the contractor getting a better deal on a different piece of mechanical equipment, the mechanical unit that went down in there was 1 foot higher than the lip of the mechanical pit. And if you were, like, say, a couple blocks down the road, and you looked up the building, and this was your look up the street, and this was a historic, this is one of the most historic streets in not only the city of Annapolis but in the country, and you could see 1 foot. So in perspective, you're really only maybe seeing like an inch in your visual perspective of it sticking up, but you could see it sticking up. They basically sued the city sued the contractor and the designer and everybody else. And, there was all sorts of craziness. And anytime we asked the one contractor or one engineer if they'd like to come work on this Annapolis project, they're like, no, we'll never work there again because of just the nightmare that they went through. But so what ended up happening is they pulled the mechanical unit out. The manufacturer came and basically redesigned the enclosure to be a smaller enclosure and more or less redesigned the entire unit. When they dropped it back in there, it was an inch below the lid. Couldn't see it.
But not a cheap fix.
But not a cheap fix.
Jeez.
Now, if at the end of the day, what people who were marketing maybe tourism, Annapolis, or whatever it was, could have used Photoshop and doctored them out of
for a lot less money.
For a lot less money and a lot less heartache.
Yeah, jeez. Well, I mean, what do you guys think about the credibility aspect of this? So does something like this, if it gets press, or do you think it hurts the credibility of the architect or of the AIA? I mean, they're the ones giving the award. Does it make them look bad and it wasn't even their fault?
I don't. I mean, it's kind of I don't want to, not quite a double-edged sword, but there's truth in advertising here, right? I mean, they're getting swindled. True.
The AIA is getting, the jury was getting swindled. It's like the Volkswagen debacle.
I would say that the jury and the award is getting swindled because, and that's where I was saying where the ethical problem, sort of runs into is if you are making money or if you are garnering awards and stuff off of falsifying documents, then there's something wrong there. That you shouldn't gain recognition for false advertisement.
So do you think it should be taken away?
Yeah.
I do. I honestly,
I do.
it's egregious enough. I mean, to me, that you've got to, you have to take a stand here, and you have to basically set. It's not like, well, we'll change the rules next time. It's like the damage is done. Sorry, we're gonna make a spectacle out of you because you're the one who did this. Spectacle's the wrong word. Example.
We always learn from our mistakes, and it kind of goes back to our first part of the conversation about designing your own home and the value and the beauty of doing it either yourself or designing it yourself or building it yourself, and all of the valuable tools, the valuable experience you gain from all of that. And in this particular case, it's kind of like the handrail thing. It's like, the reason why we put a handrail here is because people, even though you can clearly see that there's a falling hazard, people need the handrail there so they don't fall over. And it's kind of the same thing. It's just like, well, we did give an award to somebody who doctored their photos and kind of bamboozled us into thinking that it looked like this when it really looks like this. I think that the example should be made. Where I was going with it is I think that the example should be made is taking the award away and say, look, we're just not going to accept this. Yeah, because at the end of the day, where mine were for my own personal use, because I've never used them. I did say it was for my portfolio, but it was never used in my portfolio. It was more for me than anything else. That if you're not going to represent it, you shouldn't be winning. If you're not going to represent it truthfully, then you shouldn't get an award for it.
Yeah. And I think there is a lot of value in photographers being able to do some magic with the camera that doesn't have to be digitally manipulated.
And that's why firms should, not do, but should hire professional photographers to take pictures of their buildings. Because just because we're architects with a camera doesn't mean we're a photographer. And even if you think you are a photographer, there are people out there who are trained and experienced who can just bring magic. I mean, Tim Hersley has taken practically every photograph of the rural studio that's ever been published, and he can make the rural studio's pictures sing. I mean, they're just absolutely gorgeous pictures.
Yeah, there's something magical about that. Yeah.
And it's because he knows what he's doing. He sits there and he waits for the light. I mean, it's a exercise in patience. Like, okay, I'm going to go and I'm going to watch this building for a couple of days, and I'm going to see what the light does, and I'm going to wait for sunset, and I'm going to see what how the lights look on and how they don't look on, and then I'm going to take some photographs, and then I'm going to look at it, and then I'm going to take some more to kind of really kind of make it pop. But these are people who work to make this picture just really sing. It's art. It's like I said, it's the difference between photography and a snapshot. Where we're taking a snapshot, it's art. And why not sell it that way?
Yeah.
Although, again, truth in advertising, we'll probably never see the building exactly the same way as like say Tim would do when he's taking a photograph of something, because he's got the patience to sit there and just kind of capture that moment, that one moment, that second that everything aligned. And, we're never really there to kind of achieve that.
Right. You're not even going to experience it that way.
Right.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of times in photographs where we kind of nitpick these little tiny details that most people don't even notice. So,
like people?
Yeah. Like fire alarms, yeah.
My kids can quote my quote of like, if I wanted people in my pictures, I would have designed them in there.
Yeah.
They're like, yeah. See, every time they see my camera start moving up, like if I'm like carrying it in my hand, and if they see it move up to take a picture, they all stop and they're standing behind me, and they stop and let me just do my thing, and then they, and they're like, all right, go ahead,
You trained them well.
They're awesome.
Yeah, my kids need that training. Get out of the way, and they walk right in to the middle.
I think that there's a line that you can cross when you're interpreting architecture with a photograph. And I think in this particular case on this building we're discussing tonight, I think they crossed that line by taking out those air handlers. But I think there's, if you're just removing a fire alarm or something, maybe that's okay. That's not a big deal breaker. So we need
to create a list of what's okay and what's not okay.
I think that
you
list
just
is know by your own gut.
Yeah, I was going to say it's a gut feeling. Is that too far or not, or not? And
you're missing the point.
Ultimately, comes to that.
We need the Archispeak guide to architectural photography and ethics in photography.
Can we do a coffee table book for us?
Yeah. You do this, don't do this. Yeah, I'll get right on that.
So back to the whole point of it. It's just, I'm going to reiterate the point of because you said it really well, Evan. And it's, here's a guy who misrepresented. In what guy? Whatever guy. I'm not going to point fingers at one.
The guy who won the award. That's it.
Okay, so yes, the guy who knowingly submitted the award, the photographs for the award, that knew he was misrepresenting his building, because I've submitted for an award that I didn't earn, didn't win, because I went in there with probably either substandard photos, or maybe it was just something like, oh, look, there's a big, huge air handler on here, and he didn't screen it, whereas like this guy right here, he screened his and made it part of the architecture. And, so, it misrepresenting it like that could really have taken the award away from somebody else who was probably more deserving, because they represented their building as it's seen, as you can go and visit it and stare at it, versus this guy who idealized what he wanted it to be before the mechanical engineers decided, yeah, we want to cool the building. And, oh, by the way, to cool the building, it's not just to see, we decided that there's going to be these big, huge tractor trailers on top. And, because that could be a conversation all in its own, and it's designing, and because we talked about designing within constraints.
Celebrate the air handlers.
Exactly. They're going to be there. A big, huge cooling tower. It's, for a building like that, it's going to be there. So do something with it.
Yeah, it's not like they just threw those in at the last minute. All right, I think we beat this one up.
Yeah.
We win.
All right. Well, before we go, I want to give a big shout out to our sponsors, ARCAT. Visit them at arcat.com, and also our new sponsor, the Architecture Business Plan Competition. So thanks to both of them for sponsoring. And if you have any questions or comments, visit the website at archispeakpodcast.com. And you can also follow us along on Twitter and on our Facebook page as well. And then if you would like to be on the show, we're going to actually be wrapping up our season 3 here. And if you've got something you'd like to share about the show, what it means to you, feel free to call in to our Archispeak podcast line at 415-484-8496 and leave us a message there, and let us know what you think about the show. And maybe we'll get that included in our season finale.
Yeah, and just like today's show, where we started the show off by responding to some comments. If you have ideas for topics that you'd like us to address, or things that maybe are been bugging you about the show and you'd like to kind of say, hey, maybe you can talk about this or that, let us know. Send us a line, make a comment on the website or the Facebook.
Yes.
Awesome. But
showing your age there.
Yeah. Just let us know, because we'd like to we want to keep it fresh. We want to keep it contemporary to what the issues that are going on today that are troubling everybody else across the profession. And so if you've got any ideas, let us know.
We watch the Twitter too.
The Twitter.
Yep.
All right, everyone. Thanks for listening, and make sure you stay subscribed.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Cause for my kind of luck, I'll be up on the block in front of all of my friends. This is what you get. This is what you get. This is a schedule. This is a set. It's unpredictable lest you forget. If you blow, you can bet. I know, I know, I know. This is what you get. This is a schedule. This is a set. It's unpredictable lest you forget. If you blow, you can bet. I know, I know, I know. Top to the basement. Blow by blow, kinds of steel, very real, very dark, but it's still very dark, buddy. Paper, scissors, sister, preach, deep, open the rage, fast synapse. Bite chunks on pages after still the rages and news, tool and a toy book. And this is what you get. This is what you get. This is a schedule, this is a set. It's unpredictable lest you forget. If you blow, you can bet. I know, I know, I know. This is what you get. This is a schedule, this is a set. It's unpredictable lest you forget. If you blow, you can bet. I know, I know, I know.